year. Okay, Jess, that'll be you.
It's me. I've also got Bronda online.
Yep,
she is, to answer questions. So the financials, it's a fairly comprehensive paper. I think it's just worth mentioning that there obviously will be some delay to the 1920 spend as a result of the current lockdown. There certainly will be an impact and a shortfall in investment income as a result of the returns on our investment portfolio. There will be a request to carry forward some budget from this year into next year, and more detail around those will be brought to Council next month for your consideration, at which time we'll also have a bit more of an idea around our year-end position. So that's sort of probably a bit of an overview from me, and happy to take questions. Bronda and I will be able to answer those for you.
Okay, councillors, questions? Henny White?
Kia ora, thanks, Jess and Bronda. Mine's more around our response to COVID, our civil defence function, and there was a line item in your report that stated that it was around a $600,000 spend, and only 50% of that can be recouped from central government. So the other 300,000, is that already budgeted for, or will we have to loan in the future to cover that 300,000?
Rhonda, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so there's a mixture of staff costs and other welfare costs included in that. Once we've had a bit of a breakdown as to the amount of costs that are actually being recognised in the civil defence space, which is actually a movement from other areas, such as staffing time that would have been otherwise spent elsewhere, we'll have a bit more of an understanding of what that looks like. The full impact of the civil defence hasn't really been coming into the accounts until sort of April, May. So once we have an understanding of how all of that fits together and what we will be able to claim back, and any possible changes from central government around what we are able to claim back, considering the extended relief required, we'll know a little bit more about what that might look like.
Right, so just keeping in contact with central government and trying to recover as much as possible when we know what that figure is.
That's correct.
Chair, could I just add to clarify, the 600,000 per month is not over and above the CEDAM normal operating costs. It is inclusive of that. And so we do have $300,000 or thereabouts in reserves for civil defence. And we believe at the moment that those funds will largely cover the over and above costs that are non-refundable for this event at this stage. But just with the caveat that, we're still in the response and we could go back to level 3 or 4 yet. And so we're certainly not drawing any final conclusions until we're well and truly out of the woods.
Other questions? Rick?
Just a more comment, well spotted, Henny White. But I do think would be a absolutely remarkable circumstance. We've been through such an event and we've suffered no financial pain for it at the end of it. But James is right. We've got $300,000 in reserve. That's likely to be zoomed up, so we might come out of this cash neutral at the end, which would be, in my view, remarkable.
I doubt that'll happen, but and I also doubt we're an island in the Pacific, and as long as we protect ourselves from travellers, shouldn't go back. Martin?
Thank you, Rex. I just had a question, if you could just unpack a little bit the underspend on integrated catchment management. I just didn't quite get from reading the paper in the management comments on operating statement to do with the SkyTem project, 1.4 million favourable variance. Just how did that all work? What was involved? What wasn't spent, and why? That'd be great. Thanks.
Rhonda,
Jess?
do you want to take that one?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a mixture of a whole pile of different projects that have been either delayed due to COVID response, staffing, timing, employment of those, Sky Team that's has been delayed, or responses to that, or requirements of payment. So probably best if I unpack that a bit more in the more detail and send that out as additional information to councillors.
I don't want to put you to any undue trouble there. I was just wanting to understand it a little bit more in general terms. So seriously.
Yeah, that should be relatively easy to pull together.
Okay, Brian, let's do that then, as long as it's easy. Will?
Yeah, could I just ask the same question as Councillor Williams, but of the consents and compliance, if Liz is there?
She's not. Oh, yes, she is. You there, Liz?
I am. Sorry, took me a minute to get to find the right buttons to get myself back there. So with the consents and compliance, the consents part of the equation is pretty much on budget, and it is easy to budget for. Because both components, both consents and compliance, have an 80% cost recovery component. The challenge that we're having is in the compliance section, where the budget for this year was the budget for what we would recover this year was actually overestimated. We're still, although we won't probably get to 100% of our monitoring consents this year, we will get close to that. So it was a budget error that wasn't picked up before it was adopted in the annual plan, and overestimating the costs. So we still work on the 80% cost recovery, but it won't. The number that's in the budget doesn't represent 80% of the chargeable time for staff.
Craig?
Thanks. I have a question. Oh, shit. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
We heard the old chip.
I have a question about accounts receivable and payable. So our payables are down under 30 days. I guess that's a function of our position to pay within 5 days, I think. If you just expand on that, and that's really good. And hopefully we're able to continue that as we go through. But as well as the receivables, is there anything unexpected in there? There's a little bit of age stuff there, I think. And any comment you want to make along those lines? At the moment, for many businesses, cash is king, and that's a great example of our doing what we can to help the economy, the oil of the economy, keep moving, paying our bills as early as possible. So, have you got any comment on that, please, Jess? I guess.
Or Bronwyn.
Or Bronwyn, sorry, yeah.
You want me to take that one, Jess?
Yeah, sure. I'm presuming the accounts are to the 31st of March.
Yep.
Probably doesn't take into account our increased payment terms to suppliers, because I think that would have come into effect in April. So I don't think that will be the cause for the reduction in accounts payable balances.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's obvious now you point that out. But
yeah.
The next iteration of this, we'll see that, I guess. So just to remind everyone, so we have a policy of paying in 5 days.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. But Bronda, I'm not sure if you've got anything else to add in terms of why those balances have improved.
Yeah, so the accounts payable is really a result of where we're at in any project process. As we get towards the end of projects and items that come on board for being able to be paid, there is some of those items that we only pay for on a yearly basis. So some of those, depending on timing. But we are keeping up with payables on that 5 days. At the moment, we haven't had a lot of rates advances or rates receivable information around not having those. Sorry, let's start again. From a accounts receivable point of view, we've not had any information around people wanting to be able to delay those payments. We are starting to have conversations with people around what the implications of that might be and starting to get into some payment bases. But once again, other receivables, a lot of those are charged at the end of the financial year. So if you're comparing it to what we had as at the end of June, such items such as our Section 36 charges don't actually happen until the end of the financial year. So they make a bit of a difference.
Thank you, Rhonda. Welcome back, Neil. You were late. You're now shouting lunch as well. Do you have any questions, Neil, on the financial?
So that's Neil's up for morning tea at Craigie Range and lunch at Black Barn. This is looking good.
Exactly. We're trying to help the economy.
Don't know what's happened there. I've gone offline again. There's just a couple of issues that I'll cover probably offline, Jess. I just want to know how we're going to handle the $56 million deficit for the year. That's all. Just a minor matter.
Well, it's not a $56 million deficit. I think
that's troublemaking.
There's an issue in, when you look at our consolidated financial statements, we'll take into account the balance of the port IPO proceeds that are sitting on the HBRIC balance sheet. We accounted for full repatriation of those funds through to HBRC in our LTP amendment. So that's why that's showing as a significant gap reporting in this year's statements.
So optically, in the actual final analysis, we won't be showing a deficit of that dimension. Obviously, it goes to the balance sheet, but I was just curious as to know why it was treated as, if you like, income in the long-term plan.
Just that those proceeds were received or recovered within this financial year as a dividend payment from the port, the IPO proceeds. When we look at the consolidated financial statements in the annual report, those two balance sheets will be consolidated together,
Sure.
which will offset that impact. Yeah.
Good to see.
You can sleep at night, Neil. Are there any other questions for either Bronda or Jessica? Otherwise, I'll have someone to remove and receive this financial report, please. Martin, is the question, or are you going to move?
Move.
Second,
Happy to move.
I'm seeing it.
Okay. Do anyone wish to speak further? Rick?
Well, I'd just like to make the observation we were in difficult times, uncharted waters, as they say. And I just think we're going to have to ride this thing through. And I guess in about 12 or 18 months, 2 years, we'll find out what the consequences of this have been. It'll test our systems. But one thing I do think we're going to have to look to is provision more in the future for disasters and disaster relief. I think we've been just a bit tight on this, and I just think we need to put a bit more fat in the system, stack it away for that. That's the one weakness I can see of this.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else wish to speak? We'll put the motion. For those in favour? Aye. Against? The report is received. So we go straight to minor items. Stockwater, Jerif.
Okay, unfortunately, it's the wrong time for this actually to be talked about in respect to what else we actually have got on our mind right now. I brought this up prior to the 13th of April, and it hasn't been picked up, although I raised it at the minor item. Anyway, we'll move on. You cannot farm with or grow without water. Okay, and I give an example. In Holland, in Rotterdam, there is a dairy farm in the harbour. So they actually they have dairy cows in the harbour. And the only thing that they need there, different than what another farm is water. Okay, even the food that they actually produce for these cows is actually waste from hydroponics. No soil involved at all. Okay, just give you that as an example. water is so important. The reason why I started talking about this is when I found out the issue that farmers have with dams drying up and creeks and springs, I found out that Beef and Lamb and MPI had done a economic study, or an environmental study, I would like to call it. And I started to dig a little bit deeper into the outcomes of that report. And the reason, and that was done in 2016, and the reason it wasn't actually workshopped, it wasn't actually rolled out, is because M. bovis came to light. And so Beef and Lamb really had to call to action, and all their funds that they had set aside to actually roll this report out into the farming community went actually to M. bovis. I really feel, and this is part of drought resilience, and I can go into details why it's so important that farms have reticulated stock water. And every farmer I talk to, those who have got reticulated stock water, they all sing its praises. When you look and you go and Google it, there are videos on this topic, and the farmers who actually have done it and who've been studied, all they say is just do it. I've asked a couple of farmers who are hit pretty hard with this drought, who have got stock reticulated water, and they say that finance is not an issue. The internal rate of return is so high, in some cases only a year and a half. The investment you make, you earn back economically in a year and a half, in a normal year. In a year years like this, and the drought is a little bit different, but in a normal year, that's the rate of return. And the worst case scenario in the report says 7.5 years. But if I can find investments at this rate of return, I'll invest. That's what I'll do. So I don't think the money is the issue. The issue really is to make it actually happen. And we as Hawke's Bay Regional Council, we need to enable this to happen, I feel. Once again, Beef and Lamb, Federated Farmers, MPI, they're under the gun through this whole drought situation, TB, and COVID-19. And I think we have got an opportunity here to actually really make a difference. And this is about drought resilience. This is about climate change adaptation. It's about improving farmer well-being. If you think back the reports in the Hawke's Bay today, what it actually means to have to pull out your stock 3 or 4 times a week out of a dam, that's soul destroying, and the pictures weren't pretty. Even if you looked at those dams when they dry out, the eels and the waterfowl that are being displaced and died is horrific, you know. So also what this will do is actually exclusion from waterways. So if you, and I'll give an example that a farmer gave to me yesterday. If you have a choice, you go to the pub, and soon we're allowed to go to the pub again, maybe next week, Thursday or the week after. If you have a choice to drink out of a dirty old glass or a clean, sparkling glass with beer, which one will you choose? Stock does exactly the same. They prefer to drink out of a trough that you can actually medicate if you wanted to, rather than actually out of waterways. So this is one way, even if you don't put a fence up, you actually keep stock out of waterways. And the list goes on and on. I've only got 5 minutes, so I won't go there. So all I have proposed already, and I would like to propose now to you all, is that what we need to do is we need to set up a strategy, a Hawke's Bay strategy. And what we need to do is a group of people who are capable in this particular area to develop the strategy. They need to seek funding for this strategy, appoint a project manager, implement the strategy, and then most and foremost, once again, they need to monitor it. You know, you need to measure to be able to manage, which is actually very important. I don't think it will cost very much. I think it's about $65,550.63. I can be more specific if you want me to be, but I think that's about as close as I can get it. So it's not a lot of money. Although a month ago or 6 weeks ago, this would have been a no-brainer, okay, from a financial perspective. But now we've actually got more dire needs where we maybe need money. So that's the reason why I'm a little bit grumpy that this actually wasn't picked up earlier and that we're now actually dealing with this. Because I think there are even more pressing needs than they were then. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
No, we won't have any questions. We don't have minor items, so we won't. I didn't have my timer on, but I'm pretty sure you might have gone over just slightly. Anyway.
No comment.
Martin, drought relief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I was really struck by a couple of articles in the Hawke's Bay Today last Saturday. The Charterist family story, which has been shared with us by email as well from the comms team, and the talking point from Lawrence Yule on Monday. You know, just the headline of this is drought relief and the council's role in economic recovery. The Infometrics report that we have received recently highlights the role, or the critical role, of local leadership in facilitating economic response. Equally, it underscores the Achilles heel, if I can put it that way, in our regional resilience to COVID, whereby the primary sector in food production is the good news story, but the unprecedented effects of the drought facing Central Hawke's Bay is putting a real, if you could forgive the term, dampener on that. If I could quote, "The current drought is a big concern, and if it continues, could deepen the region's recession." So we need to take this very seriously. We left on the table at our last meeting a proposal for a relief fund until such time as there is a demonstrated need for the fund, and I think fundamentally there is. If we weren't aware of it, the articles about the Charterist and the Dacent families on Saturday certainly brought that out into sharp daylight, as did the talking point from Lawrence Yule and the Infometrics report itself that we've now got the benefit of. Now, the council and the staff have shouldered an enormous burden over the civil defence welfare response to COVID as it's unfolded, and we are at the beginning of the end of that. But we're now looking at the aftermath, and you know, there are many community agencies working hard at the coalface of economic recovery and the social fallout, particularly in an urban context, and they're now receiving greater and substantial central government funding. You know, outputs like the Salvation Army and the like through the phase ahead. My point is this: our farming communities are hurting in the place where this council operates. That is regulation and water shortage and security. It was really unfortunate to see the reporting around a so-called nitrogen bomb introduced in the midst of all of this, with data taken completely out of context, and that was completely unhelpful. Can I just say that in terms of drought relief, this is our lane. I believe we owe our rural communities, and particularly in Central Hawke's Bay at the moment, our sympathy, and to do absolutely everything we can, as Councillor Foss touched on earlier, to help relieve the very serious distress faced. I heard this expressed as ferociously severe by a member of the rural community yesterday. So I commend discussion in our workshop today of ways that we can provide immediate, practical and substantial financial support for our farming communities at this time, and through the drought blighted winter ahead of us in particular. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Martin, and thanks to both you and Jared for very good minor item issues. So that is the end of our meeting. And Mike, I just want to thank everybody. I do my best to make sure, if you get your hands up, I don't think I missed anyone today. I'm surveying the little faces continuously. Oh, Michelle, you got something you want to say?
Yeah, I do. Before you wind up completely, I think there'll be significantly more hurt environmentally, culturally, in pertaining to the nitrogen readings on that data we were given. They were high in the shallow wells, and when you look at the nitrate levels and the correlation to colorectal cancer, and blue babies. I don't think they can be ignored. And all of us due to intensified farming. I just tried to quickly look up what reticulated stock water is, and the definition of that is it replaces streams and dams with water tanks. So again, environmentally, culturally, the fish,
Michelle,
dying eels and fish. I do have sympathy for the farmers who are in the situation, but not to the point that we've got to consider human health as paramount.
Michelle,
over economic gain.
Yeah, Michelle, I have
I just wanted to put that comment forward on behalf of.
But Michelle, it's not the right place to put the comment. If you
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of campaigning here for the water security, and I know consideration for tangata whenua, Rex, and that's what we hear, aren't we? Myself and Mike here to represent tangata whenua view.
There is a place, but we do need to have a structure in our meeting. And I
Everybody else did.
No, because they signalled early in the meeting that they had a minor item on the agenda. And if you want to talk about it, you've got your 5 minutes, but you do need to signal it in the beginning. Minor items is just an issue where people want to put their case forward, and it's not a question time. So just
it wasn't a question, it was a comment on behalf of tangata whenua.
Yeah, but and I appreciate that, and I did give you the time. But if in the future you can just think, if you've got an issue you want to raise over that nitrogen or whatever, this is the place to raise it outside the agenda. Just need to keep some structure.
I'll note that, Rex, and I'll make sure I bring it into the next week's hui, because I think there are a lot of people in the community that are very concerned about those rates, that data.
I know, and here I am breaking my own rules, but we're all very concerned, and all those nitrogen levels are a result of legacy issues. You don't solve these issues overnight, and that's the nitrogen that's happened over the last 15 years. And
intensified farming.
Well, yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Can you bring this to an end, please, Mr. Chair?
Anyway, we're going to and close our meeting now. Mike, you opened us, so can you please close us?
Kia ora, Mr. Chairman. Once again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your chairmanship over the last couple of hours, and to all of our councillors and committee members for their input this morning. With that, it's time to bring us to a close. As we all look forward to moving into level 2 tomorrow, and all that comes with it, a bit more relaxation around the ability to move around. And who knows, perhaps a day will come soon when we're able to meet in the same room together, which we'll all look forward to doing. And with that, I'll close our hui with our karakia. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te atapai o tātou arikia i Jukureti. Me te aroha o te atua. Me te whiwhinata i tanga, tuairua tapu. Ake. Mauri ora.
Mauri ora, Mike, thank you.